Hey everybody, those of you who watched my last flea market finds video was more of a Craigslist type of thing, but anyways, you saw that I was playing around with my tachometer and accidentally dropped it on the floor, and it's messed up to say the least. I really like this tachometer. I got a really good deal on this at a yard sale, and kind of bummed that I messed it up. So something's wobbling in there. I don't think it was making this noise before, and the needle wavers like that. And also on the really high speeds, it seems to be jamming up. So I figured the only way to figure out what's going on with this, I actually thought I was kind of out of luck because I had no idea how to take this apart. But then I figured, well, since it's not really in any, I mean, I could try and sell it on eBay as a parts machine to somebody who knows how to fix them. The problem is, even though I think this is a really cool tachometer, the prices on these are all over the place. And again, this is a Jaquet, I call it, Jaquet. Sounds French to me, but it's a Swiss-made instrument. So this is all one casting here. No hint as to how this comes apart. This is the speed control, well, range control. Okay, it's got a click detent. There's no indication what holds this on. There are tiny holes here, they're for oil. So I have no idea how this comes apart. But I noticed that I could turn this bezel. And what I ended up finding out was, I thought at first it unscrewed, but turning it, it didn't seem to be unscrewing. And what I found out was that it actually is a press fit on here. So that was the first clue that I got as to how this goes together. If you're wondering how I took this off, I actually just tried it off camera before I did it. So I'm not going to press this back on just to simulate it. But what I did was I actually went up to my table edge and got the table edge on here and just gave it a light bump and was able to pop it off. That way, it's not like I went at it with a screwdriver or something and just gouged the bejesus out of it. So the next question I have for myself is, well, what next? And the only thing I can see next are these two tiny screws that hold this dial face on. Now, the dial face, I don't think it's going to want to come off with the pointer on there. So my next question is, what holds the pointer on? I'm just going to look at this on the magnification and see if I can't figure that one out. All right, so I think that this pointer is a press fit onto the shaft. Either that or the shaft and the face come out as an assembly, which I highly doubt. And I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try and very gently pull up on this. You know what? I'm going to wash my hands because I don't want to get any dirt or grease on the face of that indicator. Oh, I forgot to turn the camera back on when I did that, but what I did was I just grabbed it with my fingertips and gave it a light twisting and pulling motion, and it popped right off. And it looks like I did manage to get that dirty after all that. Even washing my hands. No, it was. My hands were still wet when I came over here. Now I need a jeweler's screwdriver. Looks like a clock mechanism inside, the way it's made. The brass plate holding it here. Well, looks like the next order of business would be to remove these two screws, which I think will take this whole assembly out in one piece, I hope. Boy, ain't that cool. I think I just found the problem. Alright, so the reason why I was getting so excited thinking that I solved the problem here is because I noticed this wheel right here. See this wheel? See how it's a flopping? See how that's flopping? That's because it's on a shaft, and one end of that shaft is supposed to be supported by, well, I'm not sure. If that's a jewel that supports this, then it may have broken. Either that or the shaft itself broke. What I was actually hoping was, I was hoping it just got jarred out of position. Oh my. This gear right here is out of whack too. Look at this gear. Holy mackerel. Man, that thing must have hit the floor hard. Well, this would be a trick, getting this thing together. See this gear? Look at that gear. So I'm going to have to, I think if I loosen this screw, I can take this bracket off, get this out of the way, loosen this screw just enough maybe to pop that back in. See what I can do here. Is this a magnet? That's interesting. This is a magnet. Looks like there might be something stuck right here. Oh yeah, it's a broken something piece stuck to the magnet. A little tiny disc of metal. You can see that little tiny black dot right there, but that is what was stuck to the magnet. It's just a little tiny disc of metal. There's this metal piece that this screw goes through and threads into. Oh, is that pressed in there? Take these two screws off. Take this bracket off and see if I can't figure out what's supposed to hold that in. Ooh, those screws are tight. It won't be doing that. These gears being all out of whack and everything, I'm surprised this thing worked at all. Alright, maybe these screws on the back side of this plate will come out. Yeah, that one does. Alright, that screw appears to hold this side on. Takes that bracket off. Now I've got this gear out, I can look at it on the magnification, see if I can't figure out. Oh, I see. It looks like the end of the shaft is broken right off. Like it's just barely hanging on. Alright, so I had to take the camera off the tripod to get close enough to see this, but there is actually a little nub on the very end of this thing. Right there. You see it? Right there. That's it, guys. It's done. I was able to look at this under really high magnification up close up, and I can clearly see that not just on one side, but on both sides, the very tip of the shaft for this gear are sheared off. And that one piece that was on the end of the screwdriver was one of the pieces. The other piece, who knows where it went. But that's a game over right there. And that's just that. Who knows what else has happened here. Oh, the carnage continues. This gear that was flopping around, it's not really a gear. It's like a counterweight or almost like a flywheel. it's a flywheel. It almost seems to be acted upon by the magnet. But anyways, on one side it's got this tiny little pin that sticks out, and on the other side the pin is not there, and that's why this is flopping around. So that that sudden jarring it took when it hit the floor actually sheared the ends of the gears, the ends of the shafts that the gears ride on. Well, I might as well finish my autopsy of this thing, since it's, you know, forever no more. There's also a tiny little black disc right here. It fell out of somewhere. Probably was behind this little tiny silver disc that fell out of somewhere. And then, as if this wasn't bad enough, oops, oh, careful, might break it. As if that wasn't bad enough, there's still damage in here, because this feels a little crunchy every once in a while. When I turn it, it feels like something's amiss. So there's a rod in here. I can see that there's some counterweights on springs that obviously, when this is spinning fast, through centrifugal force, these weights get thrown out and move that rod up. It's almost like a plunger on the end there. That plunger, in turn, pushes on this lever right here, which moves that sector gear, which winds this gear, which has a clockwork spring behind it. So it actually winds that spring up. So how cool is that? I was wondering how the heck this worked, that it didn't matter what direction you rotated this in. You didn't have to tell the unit that, oh, you wanted to rotate it counterclockwise or clockwise. It just automatically always rotated that needle in the same way. And that's why, because really all that's happening is, no matter which way you rotate this, it causes this plunger to move up and push on that lever. But there's some sort of a gear reduction mechanism or something in here that you select by turning this, and that's what seems to have gone kind of crunchy. Something right there. Every once in a while I can feel the teeth grind. So I think if I take these two screws out down inside the bottom here, that I could probably get that whole mechanism to come out. Well, isn't that interesting? Oh, here we go. It does pop out. Well, none of these teeth appear to be damaged. So what happens here is, watch, when I spin this, you can actually see that little plunger move out. It's greasy. So that's kind of cool. You got a counterweight here and a counterweight here, and you got these two clockwork springs. So this mechanism's actually okay. Well, at least it seems okay, it feels alright. But something's wrong inside here. Wow. I wonder how you're supposed to get those screws out. There's screw. I can see there's a plate and there's screws down inside here. There must be some way that this right here comes out of this side. Must be missing something. That's clearly some sort of a transmission in there. There must be quite a bit of gear reduction going on down in there, because this thing is designed to be spun with over a certain range of speeds, to cause a deflection of that needle only, you know, one time, one full revolution of the scale. Meanwhile, the input shaft here is designed to be able to be spun, depending on which position this is in, anywhere from a low of 30 RPM to a high of 50,000 RPM. So you can imagine 30 to 50,000 RPM. Imagine the gear reduction that's going on to allow you to have it be able to be switched from a range of 30 to 150 all the way up to a range of 10 to 50,000, 10,000 to 50,000. That's pretty cool. I have to believe this was built by the same kind of gentleman over there that made these fine Swiss watches that we have been blessed with. Well, if you can afford one. That screw's too short. That screw that I just took out, if I end up taking the other two, all it's going to do is take this back plate off and it's going to let all of those gears come free. Just having a hard time believing that. Well, I think I solved the mystery of how this assembly comes out. It comes out from this direction, I think, and I think the first thing you got to do is take this knob off, and it turns out I didn't notice it before, but there is actually a hole right here, and when I look at it under magnification, I can just see the end of a spring pin. Oh yeah, definitely coming out. By pulling it out this far, it's no longer hitting the detent stops. Oh, man, that was on there tight. Alright, this little ball bearing just fell out. And the ball bearing looks like this little plunger right there. Alright, so you got a ball bearing and a plunger, and if I were a betting man, I'd say there was probably there it is, there's a spring right here. There's the spring. So that's how that little detent click stop works. There were little places for the ball to go in there. So the spring has this little piece that rides on top of it, and then the ball bearing sits on top of that. And there you go. Once that knob's off, we got 3 screws. Probably these 3 outer screws, small ones here, are probably, they look like this, threading right into the casting. There we go. So the way this works is this shaft drives a little pinion gear inside this drum, and depending on which range is selected, that determines which one of these outer gears right here, these small ones, that pinion gear meshes with. And they're all laid out along the outside here. Each one of those little gears drives a shaft that has another set of gears attached to it. Some of them drive yet even other gears. It's pretty intricate. It's kind of cool. I actually don't think that anything's really wrong with that assembly. I think it's more of a case that there was probably just some debris in it from the broken pieces. So you can see this is one of the gears that would, I'm sorry, actually it's over here. This is one of the gears that would be driven by that little pinion gear on this rotating drum assembly. So if I line it up right in that position, that would denote whatever range it is that this would have to mesh with for. And some of them you can't turn it because the gear is so low that very little rotation here makes a lot of rotation there. So I guess just for giggles, we'll take this apart. Okay, so you can now see this little pinion gear I was talking about right here. So this shaft goes in and drives a gear that you can't see inside here. That gear in turn drives this little tiny gear right here. Okay. The range selector knob goes on this outer part right here, and when it turns, it moves this gear around and clicks it into position because of the ball detent, so that it actually catches one of several of these gears right here. This all sits down in here. One of these gears stayed behind, and it's behind this arm, so I actually can't take that off without disassembling that arm, which doesn't want to come out for some reason. Well, anyways, so you can see there's one of the gears, and then the other ones are all right here, giving us a total of 2, 4, 5 ranges, right? You start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and actually there's 6. How are they doing that? Oh, I see. This gear right here is one of the ones it can mesh with. So the one gear here that's missing, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this big gear 6. Pretty intricate. It's funny, this mechanism right here almost is acting like a brake. I think that actually is designed, remember this is the side with the ball detent. I wonder if there was another ball that went in this side, and that when this thing comes around, it pushes this in and releases this brake. So you see it's like a little brake shoe keeping this from moving, and then when you rotate that at the correct position, it would actually release this. And if you flip it up out of the way, you can get the last gear out. Huh. Pretty cool. Well, that's it. That concludes the destruction of this Precision Swiss instrument. No, I'm not going to attempt to put it back together. There's no point. It's all broken anyways. Good news is there's one very similar to this model on eBay currently. And it's got about a day and a half left on it, and it's got no bids on it. To buy it now is $65, but I'm going to take my chances and see what happens. There's one person watching it. Nobody's put a bid on it. The opening bid's only $9.99. Shipping's $11. So I'm guessing that the guy who's watching it probably intends to snipe it at the last minute. He's probably hoping to get it for the $10 plus the 11 something shipping. But I'll put in a last minute bid and bid a little higher than that and see if we can't get lucky. Oh well. Guess I should be more careful next time.